5392 or visit mdcourts.gov/self-help.
State Circle is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
Connecting Marylanders to their government. This is State Circle.
Good evening. Welcome to State Circle. Coming up tonight, we'll find out if the votes are there to move what may be the state's last monument to the Confederacy. That's ahead. We begin tonight with a sad milestone in the state's battle with the coronavirus. The COVID-19 death toll in the state has passed 3,000. There is good news in that the number of people in intensive care units has fallen under 200, which is less than a third of the peak. In light of other states having to reverse their reopening plans, Governor Hogan is urging caution, saying in a statement that our health and economic recovery depends on all of us continuing to exercise personal responsibility in order to keep ourselves, our family members, our neighbors, and our coworkers safe. We encourage all Marylanders to get tested, wear a mask, and practice physical distancing. Our Nancy Yamada gets reaction from some Maryland residents.
It was great. The sales were awesome.
But the lines were long.
It wasn't quite business as usual, but there was plenty of traffic at the Clarksburg Premium Outlets as they reopened for business this week.
So there are people outside in lines. You have to wait a little bit to get in, so they're letting people in and out, just like in the restaurants, I guess. Yeah.
Did you feel safe?
Yeah.
Stores entice shoppers to come back with deep discounts.
Banana Republic.
Nike
was really good.
A welcome sight for people who admit they have pandemic fatigue and are tired of staying home.
It was so nice to get out and see other people. It kind of sucks wearing the masks, but it's great for social distancing.
I think everyone's trying to get back into it and ready to re-socialize and get back with the world, so to speak.
To that end, this infectious disease scientist warns,
everything may be permissible, but everything may not be beneficial.
Dr. Wilbur Chen is an associate professor of medicine at the University of Maryland School of Medicine.
So we always, I think, have to have in the background an understanding that we have to take a rigor of compliance for masking and social distancing, physical distancing, even when we see these numbers go down to just a handful or maybe even one day down to zero. Without a vaccine, there will always be risk of reintroduction.
The big question is, why are Maryland's COVID numbers going down as other states are spiking again? Dr. Chen credits Governor Hogan for some of the decisive measures that he took early on.
We are fortunate that we're in a state that has a governor that has been a very strong advocate for the science underlying all of the physical distancing, masking, and all the other measures.
Dr. Chen also applauds Marylanders for being largely compliant with those safety measures. He says to what degree you resume activities is a personal decision, but we must always keep in mind the pandemic is not over.
We can enjoy a lot of things. It's just that we can't be back to the norms of before, where we liked to hug everyone that we knew, be affectionate, have large gatherings planned, all of that we cannot do, but we can still enjoy many of the simplicities of life.
I'm Nancy Yamada for State Circle.
The House of Representatives has approved police reform legislation, but is in a standoff with the Senate on some aspects. We spoke with Maryland 4th District Congressman Anthony Brown.
Congressman, I read your floor speech on the police bill. Obviously, this is very personal to you. What's the most important element of this bill?
The most important element of this bill, which is the Justice in Policing Act, is to bring greater transparency to law enforcement, to reform and transform police departments around the country, where we're doing a few things, setting a national standard for what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, like banning the chokehold procedure, but also setting up a national registry or database so that police officers who are facing multiple claims or disciplinary action can't move from one department to another, which has happened to avoid sort of, being, rooted out of police and law enforcement altogether. And then we also give greater investigatory powers to federal agencies, encourage state agencies to do the pattern and practice investigations. So those are some of the important things that are in there. Banning racial profiling, investing more in implicit racial bias training. Those are the things that we believe are necessary to reform police departments and to go at the systemic racism that you see in far too many departments.
Is there anything on that list that matches up with the bill that the Senate Republicans have? In other words, is there anything that both parties agree on that can get done this summer?
At this point, not really. Their bill is probably tantamount to a study, and there's no teeth in what they're proposing. And that's why I think it was important for Senate Democrats to reject that bill, to not even bring it to the floor, because you don't want to send a message to the American people that yes, the Senate is working on a robust bill that goes after the root of the problems, when what they're really doing is window dressing. So we've sent over a very robust bill. It's a vehicle that the Senate can use to debate and to discuss and reach a compromise and consensus with the House to pass something meaningful.
You've called on Governor Hogan to use executive powers to affect the way that the policing is done. What do you have in mind?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not the only one calling on that. The men and women in public service who are even closer to the governor, that's the General Assembly, the presiding officers, have called for the governor to step up. It's one thing to proclaim Juneteenth Day in Maryland, which I think is a good recognition of an important event in the history of this country. But we need more than that. We need the governor to issue an executive order. For example, there are so many police departments in Maryland, not just the 24 counties with their primary departments, but within counties, you've got sheriff's departments, police departments, transit police, things like that, park police. There needs to be a uniform standard in Maryland for what is acceptable conduct. For example, again, banning the chokehold procedure and any other potentially lethal restraint across all of Maryland. That's one example. A Maryland database, just like we're trying to do the federal database. Do a Maryland database so officers can't move from one department to another when they've got a history of misconduct in their service. These are some of the simple things that he can do, and we're calling on him to do that, to stand up and make a very firm statement that we are banning racial profiling. Maryland has made a lot of progress over the years. But to suggest that we are sort of where we need to be is wrong. And we saw just a few months ago in Prince George's County, where a Prince George's County police officer shot a man who was in handcuffs in the front seat of a police car. Those are the kinds of things that suggest that we still have problems even in Maryland.
That's a perfect point to pick up on, because the Maryland General Assembly, of course, has been controlled by Democrats for maybe a century, and these issues, it's not like this just came up, right? We had Freddie Gray 5 years ago. We've had, incidents going back, every couple of years, serious cases. Is there anything the legislature should have done over this time that it hasn't?
So the legislature did a few things. One of them I'll highlight with the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, where an officer has a 10-day sort of cooling off period when there's an allegation of misconduct or when there's a police-involved shooting. Now, if you and I were the assailants, we could be interviewed and interrogated immediately. Law enforcement has it 10 days, and they're interrogated by another law enforcement officer. The General Assembly did reduce that to 5 days. There is going to be tremendous pressure in the General Assembly to eliminate that altogether, so that when there's a police-involved shooting, that officer involved will sit down, will be questioned or interrogated, not necessarily by another police officer, so we can immediately not only get to the root of what happened, but you've got to demonstrate to the public that we're holding everyone to the same standard of accountability.
The House of Representatives moving forward with a bill for the first time that would grant statehood to the District of Columbia, your district, the 4th District, neighbors, DC. From the standpoint of your constituents, how would they feel about this?
Look, I think my constituents would be very supportive, are very supportive of DC statehood. I've declared my support for DC statehood long before I was even in Congress. When you think back, Jeff, the District of Columbia, centuries ago, that property was part of Maryland. So, we've got a special relationship to the District of Columbia. But more important, we recognize that the residents of the District of Columbia should have the same privileges and rights of all U.S. citizens, which includes, senators and full-fledged members of Congress, the ability to really self-govern, because while a lot of what they do looks like self-governance, we just saw several weeks ago with the president's presence in the District of Columbia, as if he wanted to commandeer law enforcement to push back on peaceful protesters. We need a mayor who is a governor, who's got control over the National Guard, has that type of authority in his or her jurisdiction, the new state of the District of Columbia, just like any other governor. So my constituents support it. I have for a long time.
From a practical standpoint, it would mean adding 2 Democratic United States senators, having 102 instead of 100. Obviously, Republicans are going to oppose that. Can you see a way that this becomes law at some point? Yes, there may be a Democratic president who wouldn't veto it, but in the Senate, wouldn't you either have to abolish the filibuster or get to a super majority of Democrats in the U.S. Senate?
Sure. There's no denying the fact that this is an uphill battle. But as you mentioned in your question, this is an historic moment. And the fact that it's coming to the House floor, that we are voting on and will vote and have voted on DC statehood, that's a significant step forward. Many of the most significant accomplishments in Washington, D.C., and I think the same can be said about Annapolis, take a very long time to accomplish. So we pass it here in the House. The next step will be in the Senate, and it may not happen this year, but eventually it will be.
Before we go, everybody's expecting another round of fiscal stimulus to deal with the record unemployment that we're seeing maybe in the next month or so. What should be in that one?
Sure. A number of things need to be in there. A continuation of the unemployment insurance benefit. 30 plus or minus million Americans still out of work, in need of unemployment insurance benefits. I'll add by way of footnote, Governor Hogan and his team need to do a much better job in getting those checks out to families. There's bipartisan support for that program. We need to be able to implement in Maryland. But certainly unemployment insurance, I'd like to see direct cash assistance to families, another round of that. But perhaps most importantly, big cash infusion to states and localities. Maryland and every other state, they're going to be looking at laying off teachers and fire and police because they have to balance their budget. They've seen declining revenues. We need to help states and counties and cities around this country. It needs to be in there. We've got to act. The House acted. The Senate needs to take it up now.
Congressman Anthony Brown, sir, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
That was Congressman Anthony Brown, and State Circle continues right after this.
Can you tell us what you know?
Turning back now to the race for the White House.
The State Board of Elections voted Thursday to set up a new election.
It must be a very emotional day.
The world changed in the blink of an eye.
Children are at the heart of this story.
Drop your phone and just be in the moment.
You guys ready?
Yeah!
You bring an energy It's a thrill to see images of a new world for the first time.
I want to look back and say, I learned something. That is where transformation happens.
I see people cry on this show, and I'm like, what y'all doing, man?
Out of the water came this giant thing.
That's incredible.
I feel it in my bones.
This is so totally amazing.
They hear that song and they're like, that's my story.
I have chills.
All of the joys, all of the sorrows.
This is where it comes from. The rest is history.
What may be the last Confederate statue in Maryland is facing a removal vote. The so-called Talbot Boys statue stands outside the Talbot County Courthouse in Easton. It has been the focus of several removal campaigns over the years, but now officials, including Comptroller Peter Francho, are calling for it to go. Francho said in a statement that the statue has nothing to do with praising the bravery of young soldiers. It has everything to do with being a blinking neon beacon to black people, brown people, and minorities everywhere. Don't come to this courthouse if you want equal justice under the law. Congressman Andy Harris, who represents the Eastern Shore, says it should stay. He said instead of removing the Talbot Boys statue, which may only serve to divide the community, it should become the focus of an educational effort about the Civil War and slavery. We spoke with the Republican president of the Talbot County Council, who has changed his mind.
Mr. Pack, what is your position on this statue?
My position that at the time has come for Talbot County to throw its name in the long list of names of towns and cities that have decided to remove monuments to the Confederacy from public grounds. This monument has sat in front of the Talbot County Courthouse since 1916. As of late, as you know, it has become a source of dispute. We have heard from citizens, young and old, requesting the council to reconsider its position of the past council, which I sat on, which I also was president of, which elected to keep the statue in place. Time has changed and time has come. And I have had a change of heart myself, and I wish the Desire Council to also vote along with me for the removal of the Talbot Boys statue.
In that last council, when this issue came up, which I guess was about 5 years ago, and the decision was to let it stay, you were supportive of that. How did you explain that view at that point in time?
Well, yes, I was president of the council then, and I was in favor, as well as my colleagues on the council, to retain the statue in place. And we considered a number of factors. I mean, I had great deal of research that I looked into, how the statue came about, how the vote was taken back then in 1915 for the statue to be erected. Even the history of the statue itself, it is a twin statue. There's another statue of its kind in New Orleans. The council was also looking at those names of those Confederate soldiers that were placed there. Some of those names, the descendants, are still in Talbot County. And that the U.S. Congress gave them the distinction of veterans, if not the full honor of being a U.S. veterans, but at least the U.S. Congress did give them the distinction of veterans. I believe that was the Congress of 1958, which allowed the widows of those Confederate soldiers to receive veteran benefits. So, and on top of that, I believe the Congress of 1921 allow for the headstones of veterans of Confederate soldiers for headstones to be erected. So there was a number of things that the council looked at, both from a federal distinction and also the fact that there were still persons in the counties who still had names on that monument that were their descendants.
I looked up the makeup of the Talbot County Council. You're a Republican. There are 3 other Republicans and 1 Democrat, it looks like. If you took a vote today, how would it go?
Well, Jeff, Well, I would hope that I would have 2 more votes along with mine. I believe I have one solidly in the hand for removal. I would hope that I would have a third amongst the other remaining council members. As it stands right now today of this hour that you're asking, I'm still working to secure that third vote.
And there's discussion of maybe leaving the base, which, I mean, your first thought is that that's not going to make anybody happy.
Right. That is a part of the resolution that I put forward is to leave the base. And part of the reason was that we are going to have a public hearing on this resolution set for the 28th of this month at 6:30 at the Talbot County Auditorium, which is at the Easton High School. And that will allow persons to come in and give their comment to the resolution. And if the decision is made to remove the base as well, I would support that. I know that Councilman Lesher made it very clear this past Tuesday that he is considering an amendment to also remove the base. I did tell him that upon reading that language, he would probably more than likely have my support to do that. But as it stands right now, leaving the base intact would still allow some conversation, and we'll see after the public hearing how that amendment does come to fold.
I read somewhere that this is the last Confederate monument still standing in the state of Maryland. Haven't been able to confirm that. I don't know if you can, but I was going to ask this. You're originally from the Western Shore, Baltimore area. How would you explain it to the people you grew up with who maybe would have difficulty understanding that this is even an active debate at this point?
Good question. First, your first part of your question, yeah, I have not been able to confirm whether or not it is the last Confederate monument on public land. I've been told that. I have not researched it myself, so I'm not for sure if that's the case. But that aside, getting back to the second part of your question, yes, I am from the Western Shore, blue collar community of Turner Station outside of Dundalk, right over the back river from Sparrows Point. And to go back home and talk to those mainly Democrats there in Baltimore County, you know, they know me, they know my heart, and they know I try to think things through and process things through. And people change, you know, times change, seasons change, technology changes, and people also change. And I will admit that where I was 5 years ago, I'm not there now. It's said that a man who doesn't change his mind will never change the world around him. So I have had a change of not only a mind, but more importantly, a change of heart. And I do believe that this is the right time. This is the right thing to do. I'll stand on that. This may lose me some support here amongst persons who have supported me in the past. But this is a position that I believe is the right decision to make.
Is the tightness of this debate in Talbot County reflective of race relations overall on the Eastern Shore, on the Middle Shore?
I wouldn't say that. I think that we all bring our implicit biases into whatever center that we're in, into our makeup of who we are. There are those implicit biases that everyone has in them. I would not say that race is at the heart of whether you're for the statue or against the statue. I believe it goes much deeper than that. You can look at, again, the historical factor of persons who may still be here who are descendants of those men on that statue. It may be just representation of the culture that some people may still try to hold on to. But when I hear and more the younger, more the millennials, when I hear their voices that they are troubled by the statue, that they are bothered by the statue, that it brings fear to them. I've never been a person to dismiss someone's feelings. So if that's what they're saying, if that's what they're feeling, I have to take them for their word. So if you have an object that is causing these type of feelings, then as an elected official, you need to really think long and hard about what you can do to remove that hurt.
Corey Pack is president of the county council. Sir, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
The manufacture of protective gear was virtually non-existent in the United States before the pandemic, but a Maryland group has stepped in to fill the void, as our Charles Robinson reports.
So we are manufacturing personal protective equipment for medical workers, frontline workers, and government entities right now. So primarily we're manufacturing face shields. We've made about 24,000 of them so far.
William Holman is the executive director of Baltimore Open Works. They've been closed during the pandemic. On a whim, someone suggested they use open sourcing to create face shields. With multiple laser printers and cutters, they went to work. There is little PPE, especially face shields, being manufactured in America. Open Works began supplying their product to local medical workers. Got the attention of the federal government.
As you can see, this is one of the shields they make here. As you can tell, it's a little bit longer because that's what's required for the USDA.
The USDA reached out to us to protect their inspector workforce. They have about 7,500 inspectors at meatpacking and food processing plants all over the country, protecting the nation's food supply.
To meet the demand, they have reached out to others who have laser printers and cutters. Process allows for no physical contact during the transfer. Product is literally flying out the door, and they're happy to do it. In Baltimore, I'm Charles Robinson for State Circle.
Thanks for watching and have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.
Programs on MPT are made possible by our members and the following.
Some things are inevitable. Diabetes doesn't have to be. 84 million American adults are living with prediabetes, and 90% of them don't know it. To learn your risk, take the American Diabetes Association Type 2 Risk Test.
What's your next move? Extend beyond your current position.